Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Odaily, and I'm the host, Mandy. We are co-hosting with RockTree Capital for RockTree OG Talk series. Today, we are focusing on opportunities and challenges of Web3 Crosschain. 欢迎大家来到 RockTree OG Talk series and Odaily 的直播间我是我们今天的主持人 Mandy。那 RockTree OG Talk series 是一个访谈的系列节目。我们今天的主题呢是 Web3 的跨链机遇和挑战。首先，我来介绍一下我们今天的主办方实木资本。实木资本是一家国际基金和商人银行，立足于北美及大中华地区投资发展前沿，专注于早期投资以及对领先的区块链和其他高科技公司的生态支持。实木资本与全球领先的基金、交易所、媒体等合作伙伴结成很强的战略联盟，为顶级创业者以及 Web3 项目提供高价值的战略投资以及全球化的增速服务。那实木资本的创始人 Dr. Omer Ozden， 这个欧阳墨博士呢是真格基金的国际合伙人，他所在的团队创造了中国互联网行业对国外投资开放的 VIE 架构，并且也参与了网易、百度、阿里巴巴以及美国 Facebook 的早期发展。那作为享誉加密投资领域的实角兽，也就是 Decacorn 猎人Omer Ozden 呢有非常敏锐的市场嗅觉，相继在早期投资了一系列估值超过10亿甚至于100亿美元的超级明星项目，其中呢也包括了我们行业非常熟悉的 Chainlink、The Graph、DYDX、人Phantom、Avi、Maple 以及 Pocket Network 等一系列大热的明星项目。那在 Dr. Omer Ozden 的领导之下呢，实木资本已经成为了 Web3 领域的头部基金，也成为了凝结东西方加密货币市场核心价值的纽带。实木资本呢拥有系统性的加密金融、资本市场、数字营销和法律合规专家团队。团队成员呢分布在北京、上海、南京、新加坡、纽约和多伦多，为区块链项目提供真正的全球化解决方案，帮助实木资本参投的项目链接到投资人、基金、媒体、加密货币交易所等等的资源端，为他们提供了全方位的国际生态系统支持。
Thank you for staying with me and welcome to the Oli, and we are the host for you. First of all, I'm going to give you a presentation over the host today, the RockTree Capital. The RockTree Capital is an international merchant bank at the forefront of pioneering transactions and investments between China and North America, focusing on early investment and ecological support for high-end and blockchain companies. As an innovative investment fund in North America, RockTree Capital has formed a strategic investment alliance with world-renowned banks, funds, and securities companies, and has got great support from international capitals and resources. Dr. Omer Ozden, the chairperson of the RockTree Capital, is also an international partner of Zen Fund. He was on the team that invented the VIE structure that opened China's internet industry to foreign investment, and has worked at the early stages of such projects, such as Baidu, Alibaba, New Oriental, NetEase, and Facebook. Omer has a unique insight as a decacorn hunter. Renowned in crypto investment, he has successfully invested in a series of hot star projects valued at more than $1 billion and $10 billion in early stages, such as Chainlink, The Graph, DYDT, Phantom, Ren, Maple, Pocket Network, and etc. With Omer's leadership, RockTree Capital has become the industry's premier fund, especially on Web 3.0.
感谢我们的翻译老师。那我们开始今天的这个活动。首先呢，我要介绍一下我们今天的嘉宾。Today, we are honored to invite Dr. Omer Ozden, Chairman of RockTree Capital, Viktor Ihnatiuk, co-founder and CEO of Golden Gate, Philipp Zentner, co-founder and CEO of LI.FI, as well as Sidney Powell, CEO and co-founder of Maple Finance, to talk with us on the opportunities and the challenges of Web3 Crosschain. Welcome to all of you, and please briefly introduce yourself and your business. And I have a quick reminder. The audience on the live streaming is mainly Chinese, so you are asked to please make your speech in small statement, and please pause every minute to allow our interpreter to translate. Thank you. So maybe we can start with Dr. Omer Ozden.
大家好，区块链的同志们好，我是欧阳墨 Omer Ozden，社谋资本的创始人。Actually, thank you, Mandy, for the introduction. Instead of introducing RockTree and myself, I want to just introduce some of the founders here. To understand RockTree is to understand our investment approach, which is to invest in top people, because even though Web3 is decentralized, ultimately it is centralized, that it comes down to the people. And so Sid, who is the founder of Maple, he's just a total animal, just nonstop going. Sid, last time we saw each other was in November, right? And there was some heavy things coming down in the crypto market at the time. And I remember we were meeting, and prior to the meeting, I think you had 2 phones going at the time. Hello, mate. Okay, making deals and calling these people. Just, he's a beast, okay? And you should watch this guy. He's a true crypto founder. Philipp, who is the founder of LI.FI, he is also a total beast. He comes from Web2, and he has that German dedication to precision, and he is just totally relentless, and he has the Web2 discipline, which is really important too. And then also Viktor. Viktor, he is the founder of Golden Gate, and he started 5 years ago, he started one of the largest blockchain development shops in the world. And Viktor, last time we saw each other was, I think, in Switzerland in January, around Davos time. And he had injured his foot, but he still showed up in crutches to all the meetings, which was amazing. So the key for us in investing for RockTree is top founders, guys who are completely dedicated to building and scaling.
非常感谢刚刚主持人对我的介绍，那么我就不再多赘述我自己了。我叫欧阳墨，我是 RockTree Capital 的创始人。那么今天我想首先和大家介绍一下和我参加这次对话的几位创始人。我知道其实他们的经历和能力已经超越了我所认知的一个凡人了，他们基本上已经处于一个像永动机一样的状态。所以接下来呢，我想着意和大家分享。其实我们在 RockTree 资本有一个基本的理念，虽然说我们的投资哲学就是投资于关键人，投资于这些了不起的人。虽然说今天我们讨论是 Web 3.0 去中心化，但是当我们在投资人的时候，人本质上它是有一个中心理念来驱动的。因此我就想逐一和大家介绍一下他们的一些基本特质。第一呢，我就想给大家介绍一下 Sidney， 他是来自 Maple 的创始人。我记得前几个月，当我们加密货币市场处于一个低谷的时候，我和他开会，他一个人准备了2部手机不断的打电话，不断的在成交的交易，所以我觉得他的经历可谓是惊人。那么此外呢，我还想跟大家介绍第2位，就是 Philipp， 他是 LI.FI 的创始人，他也一样也已经不是一个凡人的体力了。他本人是做 Web 2.0 出身的，他自己本身带有德国人对于细节精益求精的精神，同时也有着我们现代人这种卓越不停的一种干劲和理念，这点我非常的佩服。最后呢，就是我们今天所邀请到了的 Viktor， 他是来自 Golden Gate 的，他其实之前是做我们加密货币开发商店的，他自己本身的经验可以说非常的好之前我们在今年年初的时候，在达沃斯我们也碰过面，那会儿的时候他腿还受伤了，但是也一直没有停止他在探索项目方面的脚步。
Okay, thank you, Dr. Omer, for covering my job. The excellent introduction. So now let's move to Viktor. Could you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, always thank you for inviting me here. So I'm in crypto since 2015, organized first East European Bitcoin conferences up until 2016 when I started one of the first decentralized cloud storage platforms. And after that, was hired as a storage node growth lead for a company called Storage and build a network of node operators for them. After that, I founded Boosty Labs, which was largest and still probably largest blockchain dev shop. And in 2021, I decided that it's time for a cross-chain, and there's a couple of challenges in unifying protection, and I started Golden Gate. And right now I'm running this company with the whole idea of unifying and protection of cross-chain ecosystem.
非常感谢能够邀请我出席今天的对话。那么其实呢，我今天和大家简单介绍一下我公司的发展历程。在2015年的时候呢，我们基本就成立了有一个基本的雏形。在2016年的时候呢，我们就开始把业务拓展到了存储层。那么接下来我们又做了一些这样的桥接的架构，以及搭建整个网络。同时呢，我们一开始在前几年的时候也做了很多相关的这些网络的部署。到2021年的时候，我们就正式的进入了一个跨链的应用。在整个过程中呢，也遇到了不少的挑战，但基本上Golden Gate 在这个时候就已经正式的成型了，我们也会继续发展下去。
Okay, thank you, Victor. Philipp?
Hey, sure. Hi, I'm Philip. I've been developing for the web in the past 20 years. I started very early as a programmer, and the past 10 years I spent building companies in gaming, biotech, and marketplace intelligence. I joined the crypto space 2 years ago, and immediately we saw that this is like a vastly fragmented space of liquidity and infrastructure. And our immediate impulse was to aggregate core DeFi infrastructure and abstract it away. So LI.FI is aggregating cross-chain bridges and DEXs, essentially allowing companies to easily get exposure to any asset on any chain, and also to be able to move any asset from one chain to the other and finding the best route, because we have a smart router ordering system. And the smart order routing allows traditional financial institutions to move assets around, but also traders can use our B2C interface. We have transfer2.xyz, soon to be rebranded and relaunched on jumper.exchange. But yeah, transfer2.xyz allows you to swap any asset on chain A into any other asset on chain B.
各位好，非常感谢。我可以说，在整个互联网行业，截止到目前已经工作超过20年了。一开始我的职业之初呢，是从程序员做起的，差不多在前10年，我主要是从事一项游戏，以及还做过一些生物技术开发方面的工作。但是这2年的话，我就正式的加入了LI.FI， 因为我发现其实我们整个 Web 3.0的市场可以说是高度分化，以及有很多这样的碎片服务。那么我们的目标呢，就是要整合所有的这些不同的layer 层，将所有的服务呢进行统一的整合。简单来说，其实我们会提供很多相关的一些链上的简易服务，比方说我们能够支持不同资产在不同链上的一些移动和交易。那么说，我们此外还有自己独特的一些智能路由系统，能够帮助用户能够更好的进行财务方面的一些交易。此外，我们其实最大的特色，截止到目前呢，依旧是帮助客户进行财务的一些交易转移，还有进行财务的一些交换。
Okay, thank you, Philip. Now, Paul, could you give us a brief introduction?
Me? So my name's Sid. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Maple Finance. So I came from a banking and finance background, and this meant that I used to work with lending companies. And so it was while at a lending company that I found the tremendous difficulty that there is in accessing capital, so borrowing as a growing company and business from traditional capital markets. So what we set out to do with Maple was provide a capital market that sits on top of the blockchain. So how Maple works is you can think of it as a platform for institutional lenders to gather capital and then send out loans to large institutions. All of the loans and the repayments are captured on chain, so transparent real-time reporting. And then you can manage your lending positions through smart contracts. What we require, though, is that borrowers are approved by a credit underwriter. So these are properly underwritten loans, which are enforced with a proper legal contract. Since we started in May of 2021, Maple has done 2 billion of loans to market makers and trading firms. But now in 2023, we're expanding into real world assets. Past depositors on the platform have included Circle, CoinShares, Blockchain.com. And Maple's loans performed well during 2022, when a lot of other CeFi lenders blew up. Loans to Alameda were closed out early, and over the course of 2022, we actually only saw 2 minor borrower defaults. Maple's built on top of the Ethereum blockchain, and we have the MPL governance token, which token holders can, of course, stake to participate in the protocol.
各位好，我叫 Sidney Powell， 我是来自 Maple Finance 的。因为根据我们的公司，大家可以猜到我的一个行业背景基本上是做银行以及金融服务出身的。一开始我的工作环境呢，就是传统的一些借贷机构。其实在我们工作的过程中，就发现有一个用户的痛点，有很多成长性的企业，他们其实无法从一些传统的金融机构中获得足量的一些借贷的款项，所以我们基本上就思考可以利用 Web3.0 来为有需要的用户，尤其是一些机构贷款者，来提供一些他们所需要的资金。因此，其实 Maple 基本上就是一个这样的平台。那么我们其实所有的这些相关的业务，无论是借贷还是说回款，都是可以以实时的形式呈现给所有的一些参与者的。我们也有自己独特的一些智能合约，在交付，在我们拨出贷款的时候，其实也会根据每个机构客户的一些信贷背书，来为他们提供相应的一些资金。我们成立于2021年5月份左右，当时的交易额度已经是非常高了。在2023年的时候，我们又完成了几次，又签约了几个大的一些机构用户。在2002年的时候，其实当时我们发现一个市场的特点，也就是有些传统的中心化的金融机构出现了一些违约的情况。那我们当时因为使用的是代币，反而没有这些情况。
Okay, thank you, Sidney, and thank you all of you. Now let's jump in. So I will ask every question in both Chinese and English. Chinese first, then I will translate it in English. So first question. 第一个问题呢，是越来越多的机构其实现在有参与到 Web3 的跨链项目当中，那包括 ZK、新公链，然后中间件等等。然而呢，由于技术壁垒以及安全问题，一些基础设施应用呢，其实存在着很多的不确定性以及脆弱性。所以呢，这个问题其实是散户投资者该如何去把握跨链赛道的潜在机遇？2到3年，甚至于更多年以后，跨链的发展会对 DeFi 和基础设施产生怎么样的影响？So more and more institutions are involved in Web3 Crosschain projects, including ZK, new public chains, middleware, and other. However, due to technical barriers and security issues, there are more and more uncertainties about some of the infrastructure's applications and fragility. How can retail investors grasp the potential opportunities of what cross-chain means? And please add some thoughts on what you think our cross-chain future will look like for DeFi and infrastructure 2 or 3 or even more years from now. Also, a quick reminder again, please make your speech in small statement and pause like in every 1 or 2 minutes. Allow our interpreter to translate. So please, Dr. Omer, do you want to go first?
Sure, thanks, Mandy. I think that, first of all, we should be reminded of how Web 1 began, and it was more compact parts of the internet that weren't put together. For example, you had ARPANET and other areas, many of the universities, a lot of it started in the US and then it started expanding globally. And it wasn't until these were linked later on in the late 80s that we actually had an internet. And that's the way we see Web3 moving as well. We have all these disparate chains and so forth, isolated, fragmented infrastructure, but it will eventually all come together. And we already see with Arbitrum and Optimism, they have more transactions than Ethereum. That's not cross-chain, but what it's showing is things are moving up higher and higher layers to be able to encompass better tech, more recent tech, but also to be able to encompass all the chains as well. That's what the future looks like. I don't know when that's going to happen, but we're certainly moving in that direction. And I think some of the biggest items are what Philipp said, which is to abstract away this confusion of what chain you're using, because people just want certain features for themselves, like speed. And also what Viktor was saying, which is to protect. I think that it's really important that in cross-chain we focus on security as well because there's a lot of vulnerabilities.
感谢你的提问。其实，在我们在面向未来的时候呢，首先我想提醒大家一下，回溯过去，我们可以看看 Web 1.0是怎么样来的，以及它的一个所有的发展历程。当时其实 Web 1.0可以说是一个相当紧凑的一个网络系统，一开始只是在美国的一些大学来进行研发和使用，最早呢还是一个 ARPANET 的一个网络形态。到了上世纪80年代的时候，基本上我们看到了互联网就逐渐的成型了。虽然其实 Web 1.0的整个发展也可以借鉴到今天 Web 3.0。以及以后的一个发展路径中，虽然现在看 Web 3.0还是处于一个零散分裂的情况，但是我们也看到一些非常好的消息，比方说像以太网，它的交易额有时候就是非常的高涨。那么我们其实也会走向一个逐渐整合各链和跨链的一个趋势。具体的时间节点，我们现在还不能够轻易的去预测，但这是一个方向。因为我也想引用之前 Philipp 跟我说的一些状况，他觉得现在整个应用它是越来越脱虚向实的，也就是说用户他有自己倾向的一些应用的场景，那么 Web 3.0所提供的服务也会逐渐的符合一些客户的需求和特征，比方说有的客户他非常的关注于网速。那么 Viktor 之前其实也提到过，因为现在整个网络它是有一些脆弱性的，那么我们以后的方向可能更多的是提高安全性。
Thank you, Dr. Omer. Is that all for the answer?
Yeah, that's
Okay, Philipp?
Sorry again.
Oh, are you gonna give us some thoughts about the first question?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
You didn't hear the first question?
No.
Okay. The question is that how can retail investor grasp the potential opportunities of what cross-chain means? And please add some thoughts on what you think our cross-chain future will look like for DeFi and infrastructure in 2 or 3 or even more years.
Oh, of course. So naturally, since more and more blockchains, since blockchains find more adoption, they need to be able to handle more traffic, right? And this is difficult because decentralized systems don't scale well. So naturally, we will have more and more blockchains coming up, not only based on the technical requirements, but also because we have never put in more money into cryptography and distributed ledgers. So eventually there's more research coming out, and these research findings have to be productized. That means that if people invest a lot of money into research, they are somehow expecting return on invest. So we see more and more chains coming up. We could see that recently with Aptos, Sui, and Sai, which are new chains coming up, and those are again results of new findings and new approaches to build scalable blockchains. At the same time, we're going to see more and more chains specializing on certain things. So we're going to see chains specializing on high frequency trading. You're going to see specialized chains on gaming, and either they do so by having the technical properties to support these specific use cases, or they do so simply because that's how they chose to execute their go-to-market. So they are smart about, hey, if we are going to market, let's focus on one specific niche, and our whole messaging, marketing will just focus on certain industries, which might be gaming, which might be artists, banks, or whatever. Yeah, so this is why we're going to have a multi-chain future. And it's now up to companies like ours and also up to wallets and dashboards to make navigating this multi-chain environment as easy as possible.
非常感谢你的提问。那么我就总结2个方向，成为我现在短期的一个对未来的预测。第一个可能性呢，就是会有更多的一些区块链能够加入到整个市场上来。原因如下啊，因为现在我们发现区块链的应用是越来越多了，那么也就会增加整个网络的一个流量。但是我们知道现在的情况就是扩展性并不是很好， 那么就意味着可能我们在未来需要有更多的一些资金一方面是投入加密的研究，一方面是投入整个区块链的一个分布的研究。随着整个研发资金的投入，技术肯定会变得相对来说更加的先进，以及我们也会期待看到这些投入会带来一定的回报。所以这是我的第一个预测，也就是链种的会增加。那么第二个大概的预测也是说，会有更多专业化的一些细分领域的链出现。比方说，有一些链是专门做高频交易的，有一些是可能是做游戏的，因为这些链背后都是有一些专有技术的支撑。也就是说，在一些细分市场上会日渐的成熟，甚至在往后看，我们会有更多的一些选择。比方说是专门做银行间的，做这些艺术品和艺术家产品交易的。对于像我们这样的企业来说，可能就是在一个这样的多种多样的多链环境中，要做好自己细分市场的这一块蛋糕。
Okay, thank you. Sidney, do you want to share some thoughts with us?
Yes, thank you. So I think the interesting thing about cross-chain future is that it really helps with distribution. So if you think about it this way, it allows an app to be hosted on one chain, but have distribution and reach to other chains. So I think this has two lessons and two insights for people who are thinking about the space, whether it's from an investing perspective or a growth perspective. So at the application level, it means that the leader in any category in app on top of a chain with a lot of liquidity is now advantaged on other chains. So I think smaller competitors in a certain field, be it lending or trading, will get crowded out by the incumbents. It's like the biggest publisher suddenly getting access to the internet and being able to reach any market. In the smaller markets, they will crush the smaller competitors. At the chain level, as Philipp said, it means that chains that have a specialized capability and a niche now have access to broader distribution because they can distribute or gain liquidity from other chains. So whether that's an advantage in speed or security or reach via off-ramps, I think that will help the chains that are not also RANs, but who have a specialization to grow. If you think about it for the perspective of founders, it means that we could do something like have Maple hosted either on ETH or on another chain, but then reach and be able to be used by people on Binance Smart Chain, Avalanche, Solana, other L2s. So it just really empowers liquidity for growing protocols and teams. And on top of that, you will need to have more wallets and off-ramps which reach the different chains to allow for this.
那么我总结像3个方面的一个未来的趋势。第一个方向呢，也就是我们应该有更好的一个分布性的发展。比方说，现在我们在一个链上所应用的一些应用程序，是不是可以很好的桥接或者是嫁接到第2条链上？那么这一点不光是我们企业层面会投入更多的一些研究来确保它的增长，投资方和投资者他也会更加的关注这些多链之间的一些桥接和嫁接。那么这一点随之发展，我们又会思考如何去确保流动性在不同的链之间能够进行移动和嫁接，所以可能这又会鼓励像借贷和一些交易市场的发展。总的来说，随着资产量的增加，可能在一些细分市场上，一些小的企业，一些不够专业的企业可能就会被出局。第2点，我也非常赞成刚刚 Philipp 说的，也就是未来专业链的发展会增快。比方专业链的增快，也就意味着在专业链上的一些流动性也会增加。那么这也对所有交易的一些速度和安全性以及专业性的要求又会增加，这是第2个特征。那么第3个就是说，我们都是作为一些创业者和一些发起者，比方说以 Maple 为例，我们现在就会积极的去做一些跟不同链之间的一些桥接，比方说利用我们的技术来针对一些 Layer 2层的链，像 Solana、Avalanche 这样的一些链，我们也会做更快更好的一些对接。
Thank you, Sidney. Now, Victor, could you share your view of cross-chain or multi-chain future for us?
Yeah, sure, of course. Actually, I think I agree with Sid, Phil, Omer on everything they stated, and definitely a future in this industry is cross-chain. and it will be a bright future. Why cross-chain future? Why not Ethereum future? So first of all, when we did our last research for Golden Gate in the middle of last year, we found 200 plus blockchains exist in the world. Right now, I believe it's about 300 plus. So you can visualize that as like a blockchain is like the world, the planet, and every blockchain is like a countries, and all countries need to do an international trades. And maybe one country will come, one country will go, but there will be lots of countries, and it means that those countries should be connected somehow. Because they need to do this international trades. That's why the companies who provide cross-chain communication protocols, bridges, kind of aggregation of all of those things are super needed, because there will be no one chain future. And well, of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum are probably like 60% of the market, 70% of the market, but there will be more chains. So those who start to connect them, they will be the main drivers for future growth of the like a blockchain, of the cross chain, and in general. And like some companies trying to solve it in their ways. At Golden Gate, we decided to build a programmable layer 0. So we are connecting all blockchains and let you to build your apps on top of all those connections. So if you want to go cross-chain from day one, you can build on top of Golden Gate and be like everywhere in the same time, compared to like approaches with bridges where like you're transferring only when you need to transfer something. So yeah, the future is bright.
非常感谢提问，我也总结2个方向吧。第一个方向，我非常赞成刚刚欧阳墨博士所说的，我觉得整个行业的前景是光明的。我的理由如下哈，因为我们Golden Gate 在去年年中的时候做了一次全球调查，去年年中的时候，全球区块链的这样的链数呢，大概是200左右。截止到现在，今年的话已经差不多到300了。在未来的话，其实我有个这样的假设，所有的这些不同的链，我们可以把它比作一个世界地图，每一条链就是代表一个国家。我们承认有一些链，也就是相当于是有些国家它可能存留不下来，那么它可能走了，其他的一些新链又会重新加入进来，而在整个这个世界地图中，链与链之间的关系是越来越密切的。因为我们公司本质上就是做的这样的一个跨链连接的业务，我们有自己的一些跨链的协议，同时也提供这样的桥接的服务，还有自己的一些整合的技术。我相信我们做这样的业务，未来的需求只会越来越大，所以我认为前景是光明的。那么第二点呢，我就想再来陈述一下我的个人观点了。未来没有哪一条链它可以独领风骚，而是多链会百花齐放。当然我们要看到像一些大的和出来的早的，像比特币和一些其他的，他们可能加上去的全球业务会直接占到60%甚至70%，也可能会成为整个市场的主要推动者。不过我其实也非常看好未来的一些成长性的链，比方说我们公司就是做 Layer 0层的，我们本质上非常欢迎各个新链能够在我们的平台上能够从头开发他们的一些应用。我们也认为我们的服务能够帮他们未来要做跟其他链的一些桥接和业务和资产的移动会非常的快捷和方便。
Thank you, and thanks to all of you for explaining the cross-chain and multi-chain future to us. And next question, I will ask Dr. Omer. 那这个问题呢，是因为 Omer 在我们国内呢也是以实角兽猎人闻名的，因为像 RockTree Capital 是非常擅长捕捉这个市值超过100亿美元的明星项目。那 Web3 呢，其实是 互联网近年来最有野心的叙事，很多传统的互联网巨头，比如说像Amazon 啊，像 Google 啊，像 Meta，包括像字节跳动和百度等等，其实也都有很多的消息是在积极的探索 Web3领域。那目前呢，其实区块链基础设施是很需要得到改进，才能服务于 Web3的宏大叙事的。那么这个问题呢，其实是如何去判断一个基础设施是真的有价值，还是说它是只停留在概念上面？So this question is for Dr. Omer. So in China, actually, you are known as the decacorn hunter for finding the projects early target that eventually become the 10 billion market cap or even above. So Web3 is the most ambitious story on the internet, with many traditional internet giants such as Amazon, Google, Meta, ByteDance, and Baidu are actively exploring and making inroads in the area. The current blockchain infrastructure must be improved to serve a vast number of narratives. So how do you determine whether an infrastructure application is really valuable or it's just like conceptually interesting?
So I think going back to our approach to investing, it's investing into top teams. And I think with respect to infrastructure specifically, and this is not necessarily in the case of DApps and other things, but infrastructure specifically, I think when a team can let go of ego and not create something just for the sake of building better tech, it needs to be thinking about the market and usability and usage, adoption. And more importantly, Web3 is open source. And so there's a lot of good stuff that's already built, that's battle tested. It doesn't need to be redone. I see a lot of founders building completely new things with new programming languages. One of those projects was mentioned on this discussion already. And do we really need that when there's already so many good battle-tested components of infrastructure that are open source, good programming languages that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions have already learned, that we can just use those to continue to iterate and build the infrastructure of Web3. Focus on the key part of innovation as opposed to saying, okay, I know how to do it better than everybody else, and I'm going to build it from 0 to 1 completely differently. I think that has a lot of ego in it, and it doesn't necessarily move the needle on infrastructure. I think iterating, taking what's already battle tested and iterating it is the best for what we look for infrastructure development.
非常感谢你的问题啊，我们又回到之前最初所说的实木资本的一个投资哲学。我们投资的是顶尖的团队，投资的是人本身。现在其实我们关注 Web 3.0，它是一整套基础设施架构，而不是说我们就开发一个去中心化的一个应用。在开发一个基础设施架构的时候，我们其实非常希望所有的这些开发团队，他们首先能够走出以自我为中心的这种傲气，而要更多的去了解整个市场需要什么，用户的痛点是什么，和整个产品的使用性又在哪里。因为 Web 3.0 它是建立在一整套开源的技术和代码之上的，不需要从零开始来开发全部，也不需要去发明一些新的编程语言。我之前其实看到过有一些创业者这么做过，我是不太赞成的。我更鼓励现在的一些团队能够使用好既有这些经过实战测试有用的这些设计语言，利用好现在所有的这些开源资源和所有的一些编程的代码，能够将 Web 3.0 迭代出来。因为迭代出来的本质也是一次关键的创新。如果所有的人都想从头做起，从0到1的话，可能这是一种这是一种团队傲气和傲慢的表现。
Okay, thank you, Dr. Omer. I feel like, do we really need it? Is probably a question a lot of founders should ask themselves in the crypto area. So now the next question is for Dr. Sidney Paul. 我们下一个问题呢是这个问 Sidney 的，是关于这个中心化借贷增加流动性，其实会更有效的提升 Web3 市场的这个准入的声音，其实我们是会听到很多的。然后Maple 在这个赛道主要是想要做什么呢？以及是否有更多的机构和银行集团会考虑使用，就这些传统的机构，他们是否会更多的去考虑使用 DeFi 的基础设施，以及Maple 是如何去融入其中的？这是我们大家比较关心的问题。以及呢，也想问一下 Sidney，就是关于接下来生息市场，你觉得会如何发展？So this question is for is for Mr. Sidney. For an efficient Web3 market, access to good borrowing and lending is something we heard more and more about. So what is Maple Finance working on in this space? And nowadays, more institutions and banking group are thinking of using DeFi infrastructure. Is that a trend? And how does Maple fit in? And what do you see happening regarding the yield market?
Yeah, thank you. I'll answer this in two parts. So firstly, borrowing and lending are extremely important, particularly for Web3 to grow. It needs to have borrowing and lending as a service that is available for institutions, but it needs to have borrowing and lending that touches the real world. If we want this to gradually take over the financial system, we need companies to be able to borrow and lend against real world assets. So the first part is that what we're working on is real world assets. This is going to be very important. We just launched a pool earlier in the year, about 4 weeks ago. And the pool does loans to small businesses, which are backed by tax refunds. This pool is now $5 million and growing, and it helps small businesses. So this is one of the first examples of a real world asset impact from lending happening on chain. The next thing that we're seeing in this space is the use of government rated debt as collateral for on-chain loans. So this is the reversal. This pool will start in April, but you would be able to lend to a borrower and they would call on-chain and they would collateralize that loan with government bonds so that even if they default, you still have recourse to those bonds. So much lower credit risk and a real distinct change in how lending is done on chain, and also highly liquid. So we're seeing a lot of demand for that from DAOs and other on-chain teams. I'll pause there and then I'll talk next about what we're seeing in the way of collateral management on chain.
好的，我就分2个部分来回答你的问题。第一部分呢，就是我非常赞成刚刚问题中所说的前一部分啊，因为我们认为整个借贷市场是非常关键的。借贷也可以说是 Web 3.0 能够保证整个基础设施增长我们提供的最直接的服务。而且现在呢，我们基本上是我们是做这些机构借贷者的。为了让 Web 3.0 更好的去接触现实世界，我们在选择赛道的时候也肯定会做这种和现实世界挂钩的一些业务。比如说之前我们就开发了一个这样的借贷池，里面借贷池呢，它的资金来源其实就是直接对标现实世界中的一些退税。现在这个借贷池的总金额已经达到了500万。在今年8月份呢，我们预计也上一个可以和政府所认定的一些抵押物相关的一个这样的借贷池，这也是一个链上的一个项目。我们基本上除了在这个池中能够认证政府所认可的一些借贷抵押品之外，还有政府所发的一些债券，目的就是我们希望能够把整个借贷池的风险压到比传统的一些政府债券还要低。
Thank you. So looking at collateral for on-chain loans, the other thing that we're working on is a connection with a qualified custodian so that we would be the first on-chain lending platform to allow collateral to be held off-chain with a custodian. So your collateral would not be rehypothecated, would not be commingled. But what it does is it helps a cross-chain future, because if you have assets on another chain, you can now use those as collateral to borrow from Maple on the Ethereum chain. So we're working with large institutions for this, but it would then enable other forms of collateral like AVAX, BNB, BTC, XRP on other chains to be used to collateralize loans, which are on smart contracts on the Ethereum chain. So this addresses a lot of the concerns with CeFi.
所以第2点我再继续，刚刚其实我们说到整个链上抵押物，我也想和大家分享一下，因为我们做的链上抵押物，它可以用链 我们有做的链上抵押物，可以去选择一些链下的实际抵押物来进行操作，但是链下的抵押物呢，可能会遇到一些可能会通过托管的手续来进行完成。好处其实是这样，比方说我们在 Maple 的链上来做这样一个链上的抵押，可以选择其他的链上的一些抵押物，也能来个操作。比方说，我们可以用以太网上的抵押物来再次抵押到我们链上，也可以用其他的像 BYBX 或者是其他的一些链，我们都能够进行这样的桥接。
Sid, I'd love to hear your impressions on, I don't know if you heard, but Hong Kong released their first tokenized bond. Hong Kong Central Bank with HSBC, Goldman Sachs. I was 100 million green bond. Are you aware of that? It just happened, so maybe it's new news.
That is actually new news. I'll have to look at it, but I do think that the trend of large financial institutions, whether it's HSBC or others, releasing bonds directly on chain is going to continue and grow. Now, we're really excited about that because it means that we don't then have to go and find a way to tokenize them and bring them on chain. They're already there. So it advantages firms and platforms like us in terms of lending against them or allowing those to be financed by the issuer.
Have you seen other bonds issued at such a high institutional level, like, for example, the larger investment banks and also central bank getting involved? Have you seen that, tokenized bonds?
Not in large volume, but it's starting to happen. I think Siemens released a $60 million Euro bond a week or two ago. And so that's the first really large corporate bond that we've seen on chain. So seeing more government issued bonds, I think, is going to continue. We saw a few years ago, there was the first one, which was the World Bank issued a bond, and I think it was done out of Australia with Queensland, but that was the first of its kind a few years ago.
所以我们再补充点额外的信息，像截止到目前，香港现在应该已经有几家政府所背书的银行和几家大型的外资银行已经发行了链上的一些债券，比方说像汇丰和高盛已经做了相关的一些业务拓展，他们可以直接用代币来进行记账。那么也可以去了解一下未来是不是有这样的趋势，以及这种高级别和一些具有国际影响力的知名投行已经参与进来了。那么未来会不会有更多的一些企业和政府都来参与进来？刚刚也回答中提到了之前有一家企业也发了大概有600万相关的一个这样的线上的一个债券。同时几年前的时候，当时世界银行也在澳大利亚的昆士兰做了一些这样的试点。
Okay, thank you, Sidney and Omer, for sharing with us about the real world asset. So next question is for Philipp of LI.FI. 那 LI.FI 呢是跨链聚合器和去中心化交易所，也就是 DEX 的基础设施协议，以及促进生态系统流动性为这个目标。那我们的问题呢，其实是 LI.FI 的目标受众会是哪些，以及 Philipp 认为未来是不是会有更多的零售业务参与其中，包括这个2023年跨链赛道会不会变得更加成熟？So crypto's biggest task for the year ahead might be to stabilize the market for investor and participants, with perhaps some features found in the traditional markets, from regulation to insurance and new form of assets. 2023 will explore coexistence for decentralization alongside emerging regulatory systems. So this question is for Philipp of LI.FI. LI.FI is a multi-chain bridge aggregation protocol with DEX connectivity to facilitate ecosystem liquidity. So who is your target audience, and how do you see more and more retail getting involved in the future? And also, how do you see cross-chain marrying this year? So Philipp?
All right, so quite a few questions. So all in all, yeah, we're gonna see regulations cracking down on different topics, and as that happens, we see more and more use cases coming on chain. May it be bonds, may it be real world assets, tokenization of those. It's gonna be exciting. So and we're gonna see these things coming slowly by geography after geography. So France and Germany are making great progress. South Korea is very progressive in terms of that. Right now, we see a few steps taking back from the US, right? Things are changing, but people are dealing with it. I believe it might be worth it to buy into blue chips. No financial advice, but you would like rather probably sit out on taking too many risks. We're gonna see these new use cases onboarded on different chains. LI.FI can help here to move your liquidity from one chain to the other. LI.FI in general is a B2B company, so we mainly help institutions and wallets and larger protocols to move assets from one chain to the other, or have more complex strategies. So we can do things like swap, bridge, swap, and stake, for example, so people can really get in and out of other positions. Whereby at the same time, our B2C interface, transfer2.xyz, gives retail users the opportunity to move assets around as cheap and fast as possible without having to go off-chain and on-chain again, or using centralized exchanges, which comes with a lot of usability overhead. Yeah, does that answer your question?
那我先来回答你的问题，然后你看我有没有完整的去回复你所有的这些细节点啊？因为这些问题比较多。总的来说，我觉得在整个行业的趋势之中呢，我们会看到所有的管制会逐渐的减少或者放松，而用户的使用场景会逐渐的增加。比方说，我们看到了在未来，我们可能会看到一些新的应用，包括刚刚所说的一些债券。也包括一些对接一些真实世界的资产，或者是说部分的真实资产可以进行一些代币化。我们当然细分来看，全世界不同的地域也有不同的趋势。比方说，在欧洲的法国和德国，我们看到整个政府的管制是在放松的，韩国也是如此，发展的会比较的迅速。不过，在有一些国家也出现了一些政策倒退，美国就是其中的一个典型的案例。当然，长期来看，我们肯定是希望有越来越多的这样一些蓝筹的企业会不断的涌出。以我们公司 LI.FI 为例，我们的主要关注点其实是做一些 to B 的业务，而且是帮助这些客户进行流动性的一些移动，包括除了流动性之外，当然还有像钱包，还有一些协议，我们的甚至是一些比较复杂的一些客户的战略，我们希望能够帮助他们以成本较低和效率较高的方式进行跨链的一个转移和移动。当然，未来我们可能还会拓展一些像权益抵押方面的内容。用一个比较简单的比喻，比方说我们就有点像个 XYZ 这样的一个平台，目的就是以一种这样更加成本低廉和效率更高的方式来实现传统中心化服务无法给到客户的一些体验。
Okay. Thank you for answering all 4 of the questions. Actually, this is a significant insight. We believe that in the future, users shouldn't care about which chain they are on, but only feel they are using an app. So next question is for Victor. 那作为一个跨链基础协议项目呢 ，Golden Gate 有哪些技术创新我想请 Victor 跟我们分享一下，包括 GGX 的目前的发展情况，以及 Golden Gate 解决了哪些跨链的痛点，同时能不能给我们介绍一下开发团队以及打造这个 GGX 的初衷？So Victor, what kind of technology innovation does Golden Gate have as an interchain infrastructure protocol project? Could you share with us the current development of GGX? What are critical cross-chain pain points that Golden Gate solves? And could you give us some introduction of the development team? Why do you create a new chain?
Sure, I will start from the back. So actually, why why we decided to create. Here we talk a lot about usability for going cross-chain, but we covered just a bit about protection, and it's actually very important. Answering on a mission for a Golden Gate, we do unification, but also protection. And why protection is very important for cross-chain. Last year, I don't know if you know about this number, but the number of hacks in the whole blockchain industry is actually very big itself. It's something between $4 and $5 billion been hacked only last year, and a little bit over than 50% of all those hacks were made on cross-chain infrastructure, bridges primarily, and 2.5 billion was hacked and stolen from different bridges, compared to 370 millions for lending protocols or 700 millions for decentralized exchanges, which is like mind-blowing. So it means that something is broken in bridges, and that's why we actually decided to build Golden Gate. Originally, in June 2021, Golden Gate was just a cross-chain bridge for EVM and non-EVM chains. And it was like that during most of the 2021. And in 2022, after another huge hack, wormhole hack, and then a couple other hacks, we decided that probably we need to switch. And when we did the switch, we decided to think strategically, what is the least fragile piece in the whole infrastructure? And we found this answer, which is very simple. It's a blockchain itself. So we decided to build a blockchain-based bridge or blockchain-based communication protocol, or all together, which is actually an interchain infrastructure protocol. And I will continue after translation.
我先回答你的其中一个问题，也就是说，我们整个 Golden Gate 的成立，它有哪一些初衷啊？其实我们成立基本上就是有2个基本点。第一点呢，我们是想我们的考虑是如何提供更好的一些跨链的使用性能和体验。第二就是我们想更好的去保护用户。我们非常关注如何去更好的进行保护用户，这基本上也就是可以说是我们公司一个使命了。大家可能好奇为什么我们会这么强调这个安全性，我想举一组去年的例子给大家。去年总共大概的数据，由于黑客的攻击，在整个区块链的经济损失就达到了40到50亿美元。其中50%的黑客损失，它直接是通过这种跨链的桥来完成的，那总体的金额也就高达了25亿美元。为了更好的去弥补这一些漏洞，基本上要花上3.7亿美元来进行保护，还有7亿美元是其他方面的一些研发。我们公司其实是成立在2021年的6月份左右，那个时候其实我们的主营业务就是提供一些这样的桥接的服务。到2022年的时候，我们就发现原来在整个行业中，黑客的攻击会带来这么多的一些损失，所以我们当时就有了一个想要调整业务的想法。我们想从做一些碎片化的服务，转型为提供一个完整的基础设施的一个整合性的服务。因此，我们现在可以总结自己，就是做一些基于基础设施的桥接，或者说是一些这样的沟通的我们提供一整套关于桥接的沟通协议。
Yes, so once we made this transition to build a blockchain-based bridge or programmable layer 0, it will be better to name like that. I realized that now I have a bit more challenges than just like driving just like a DeFi app. So I bring a couple of the best people I had in my network to help me with this project. So first whom I bring was Matthew Doughty. He was actually a second hire at Ethereum, research hire. He helped Vitalik to build a mining algorithm for Ethereum, and Then he switched to NASA, then switched back to blockchain again, and now I pitched him an idea like back last year, and he told me yes, that he knows how to build it, because actually the vision was quite ambitious, like to build the new blockchain to unify it with other blockchains and create kind of this interchain infrastructure protocol. And with the idea of reusing battle-proof technologies in mind, we decided that, well, there is a couple of good battle-proof tech on the market that we can reuse, and we decided to fork Polkadot relay chain to have it as our base layer, and to like work with already like approved cross-chain communication technologies like wormhole or multi-chain, and we decided to take best out of what was already created and focus rather on our efforts on innovation itself, just to create a better future for a cross-chain rather than recreate the wheel if wheel is already created and proved. Right after we got everything in place product-wise, we decided to build like a full-scale marketing community and growth team in Asia and like across the globe. So that's when I bring other guys to our team. Katie, who is building our operational office in Singapore, Kevin with you, who's building our North American growth, more developers from Europe. So, and that's how our team became like a very worldwide with a global footprint. So it's based in Asia, in Europe, as well as in North America. And that's how we iterate, and almost ready with a big announcement. We're going to our testnet in end of next month, and mainnet is planned for end of July, early August this year as well. So yeah, this all updates on Golden Gate side.
所以呢，其实我们也了解，如果要做一个完整的这样的桥接的架构，是从 Layer 0来做起，它的挑战要比我们之前，比方说开发一个去中心化的应用要困难得多。所以为了实现我这样的一个理念的话，当时我也找了很多自己的朋友和网络，希望能找到合适的人跟我一块儿来进行开发。当时我找了我一个朋友叫 Mike， 他是我们现在公司团队中负责研发的，可以说是老二了。他之前呢是在 NASA 工作，所以为了说服他来加入我的团队，我差不多花了整整1年的时间的游说，后来他就同意了。那么接下来慢慢的，我们就在思考要用什么样的技术呢？我们最后选择的一些区块链的技术，包括像协议，都是一些可以实际用的，也就是一些实战的技术。因为我们开发出来的整个平台是需要用到市场中的，而且我们是做这个基础层，也就是 Layer 0层，我们会需要有更多的像一些 WOP 和其他的一些相对和一些成熟的标准能够支持我们。同时我们还需要真正的产生一些收益。我们其实一开始的研究团队就是这么一步做起来的，所以先有了研究团队，后来慢慢的还有一些销售团队，负责一些公司开发的团队，包括像我们的办公室，后来的运营办公室呢，也是建立在新加坡。在新加坡的运营办公室成立之后，像 Kevin 的话，他现在是负责北美的一些业务。我们后来又在欧洲也招聘了一些这样的开发者。慢慢的，我们应该计划在欧洲布局完成之后呢，我们其实又回过头来再弥补了亚洲这块办公室的一个布局。我们其实在接下来的话呢，还会做一轮的测试，应该就是下个月了。到了今年的7月份到8月份的时候左右啊，我们应该会完成自己全部的这些测试。
Okay, thank you for sharing the current status of Golden Gate. I think the next level of Web3 infrastructure is getting closer, and I would like to ask Omer another question as we near the end that everyone in the audience wants to hear about. 那下面有一个问题呢，也是问我们的 Omer 博士，就是这个那美国的 SEC 呢，其实是在持续的打击交易所和 staking 的相关业务。与此同时，刚才Omer 博士也有提到，香港其实正在计划变成下一个加密货币的中心。那其实想问一下，Omer 博士认为，中国在这个加密禁令上出现的这个转变。是一个怎么样的原因，以及很多人都在讲新的牛市其实是从东方开始，想问一下这个 Omer 是怎么认为？So SEC continues its crackdown on exchange and staking. Meanwhile, as Omer says earlier, Hong Kong plans to become a crypto hub. So could we see Chinese government make a U-turn on its crypto ban? And what do you think? Will the next bull market start from the east? And due to the time limit, could you make the answer shorter? And a quick reminder, could you pause between like every 1 or 2 minutes for our translator to interpret?
Sure. I think that this relates to what Philipp said earlier in terms of there will be ebbs and flows of development and regulatory crackdown, and people will go to other markets, and that's just the nature of the world. And kind of what Viktor was saying in Crosschain, that the different chains are developing nation states. Well, actually, we do have nation states. Countries have to compete. Countries have to compete for money. They have to have jobs. They have to compete for technology, and we're seeing it now, and particularly in Web3. So definitely there is a crackdown by the SEC, but we've seen that from the very beginning. They came in really hard in 2017. 2018 was very tough with the SEC, and a lot of people went to Asia. And so you saw a lot of the development in Asia. And then we saw certain markets in Asia also start to become more restrictive, and people went more to Europe and to other parts of the world. So right now, I think that I'm just going to say it because we're on an Asian podcast or streaming. It's not necessarily for an American audience. I think that Gary Gensler at the Libra hearings, we were there. RockTree was there with Facebook hearings, speaking with Congress. Gary Gensler testified that stablecoins are securities. And I think based on that, he really should be charged with perjury, because he's an expert. He was brought on as an expert witness, and he's trying to tell people who don't understand this that stablecoins have, if you know the definition of security in the United States, an expectation of profit. And so you tell me where you get an expectation of profit in stablecoin. Yet he's saying this under oath, and he's trying to trick American people and the market that this is indeed the case. And so that's the level of, I would say, a problematic, highly biased leadership and regulatory overview that we have in the United States now. And I'll talk more about Asia after you interpret.
好的，那我先来响应一下我们刚刚两位讲者的观点。之前 Philipp 也说到过，在未来的趋势中，肯定 Web 3.0的应用会越来越多，以及相关的一些管制和政府的一些约束是会逐渐放松的。因为我们知道，这本来就是一个大的市场，所以所有的一些业务和所有的相关的一些管制和开发，它是不断的流动，它不是一成不变的。Viktor 刚刚也说了，在做跨链的整个开发过程中，不同的链就相当于是不同的国家。其实这个国家在现实世界中也一样，不同的国家它本身就存在，而且他们就资源、就业岗位和技术的竞争也会日益的严峻。就美国证监会的一些态度，我们也看到了它有一定程度的演变。在2017年的时候，可以说证监会的态度是相当强硬的，在2018年的时候也没有放松，所以当时的整个市场就总体移到了亚洲。当亚洲的政策收紧之后，又移到了欧洲。 如果说以后欧洲收紧，肯定还会有其他地方在因为技术和资本会选择他们愿意去到的一些领域。我们其实今天因为是在整个亚洲所进行的一个直播，所以呢，我也想稍稍提及一些我之前在美国证监会所了解到的一些内部的情况。之前在脸书在进行听证的时候，其实当时美国证监会的主席加里根斯勒他就提到过，区块链它本来就是一个未来的技术。现在之所以政府有着比较严格的一些管制，只是因为出于一个为自身利益考虑的一个态度和做出的决定，而不是说这个技术本身有任何障碍。所以我现在认为，美国政府所采取的一些严格的管制措施，它本身也不是一个公平的。
And I think some really good news is that Asia, and particularly Greater China, is becoming more welcoming, even from a government standpoint, for Web3. As you know, I had alluded to earlier with Sid that there was a bond released in Hong Kong, tokenized bond. There's actually been a lot of development in Hong Kong recently. In the past 60 to 90 days with the SFC, which is the Hong Kong's SEC version of SEC, issuing licenses, allowing for certain types of investors to purchase crypto and opening up regulatory frameworks for businesses to actually do business in crypto in Hong Kong. In fact, some of the top banks like DBS are now allowing clients to purchase Bitcoin. And this is all very recent. So I don't think this is being priced into the market. And I'll just say, like, as somebody who's been in China for over 30 years, that this type of thing doesn't happen unless the Beijing government allows Hong Kong to proceed in this way. And so we see the development in Hong Kong as a window. And also in mainland China, we've seen that's a very important indication that mainland China is giving the green light. That's how it's done in China. They don't have to officially say it. But also there have been some signals, for example, discussions about tax regulations for crypto in China, and also somebody who was former senior monetary policy for Bank of China previously made a statement in December related to China perhaps thinking about relaxing the restrictions, and that was actually printed at the end of January. So this is the way that signals are sent in this market, and so I think it's huge news for Web3. I think that it hasn't been priced into the market, and I think that all crypto projects should start thinking about developing in China and thinking about investment as well into the market.
我再继续补充，也就是我对亚洲的一些看法。在整个亚洲市场，我是比较看好现在大中华区的一个发展的，因为现在政府其实可能在一定程度上面没有那么明文去反对整个 Web 3.0的发展了。像我之前和大家举的例，就是以香港为例，香港的一些大的银行已经发售了以代币为基础的一些有价证券。那么当然香港的这些发展和新闻都是在最近60天到90天之内的一些最新的发展。这其实也意味着，在北京政府的不反对下，香港政府才可以开始相关的一些试点。同时，我们其实在北京政府也发现了一些隐约的绿灯的信号，比方说对于比特币和相关的区块链行业已经有着一个相当的税收的要求。虽然说没有明文正式的去公开认可加密货币行业的发展，大概是在央行在去年年末的时候就非正式的出台了一些许可的文件，到了今年的1月份左右，这些文件又再一次的出现并且验证了。
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about markets, and particularly Web3, is it moves so fast and people are so resilient that if countries want to develop technology, employment, and so forth, they need to think about how to encompass Web2 and Web3 technology investment and developers.
我也看到了，其实前面有明显的曙光啊，包括我们的从业者可以说也相当的是有韧性，百折不挠。在整个 Web 3.0的发展，我们可以看到，它无论是对于技术的向前一步和对就业市场的助力，可以说是不言而喻的。同时，对于政府而言，可能最佳的方法之一就是将现有的 Web 2.0和 Web 3.0进行结合。
谢谢。
Okay, thank you, Dr. Omer, for sharing with us, and welcome to Hong Kong this year. And so now is the last question. 那最后一个问题，我觉得是我们中国观众相信也都比较关注的，就是其实想问一下各位嘉宾，2023年呢，大家是看多还是看空，以及整个市场让你们最兴奋的这个部分或者说赛道是什么？So last question to the rest of the panel. In 2023, are you bullish or bearish? And what are you most excited about in the crypto market? So short answers, please. And again, please pause every minute for the translation. So Omer?
I'm not expecting any type of bull run in 2023, but I am always bullish and I'm always excited. So I'll leave it to the rest of the guests to talk.
非常感谢这个问题啊！其实针对2023年单年度，我非常不方便去说它是一个牛市而熊市，因为对于我本人来说，其实我一直是处于一个这样的微牛或者是一个强牛的状态，因此我想把这个答案呢交给其他的几位嘉宾。
Okay. But Omer, do you want to share what are you most excited about this year?
Maybe some other guests can talk about that.
Okay. Viktor?
Yeah, sure. So I'm excited this year because finally this like a bull run with lots of hype that happened in 2021, 2022 is over. So you can focus on like a real fundamental things and build. And there's plenty of people who think in the same way as I'm thinking. So less bad companies, more good actors, and more time to innovate and create something that this infrastructure need a lot.
其实我觉得比较开心的就是在2023年，我们总算是可以走到能够拥抱曙光的最后时刻了。因为早在2021年到2022年，可以说我们其实一路打怪升级，也一直在跨栏前进。到了今年，我们可以集中所有的力量和我的合作伙伴一起来进行针对基础设施的一个根本创新了。
And also, I'm excited of how many different cross-chain experiments happening on the market right now. And Golden Gate is not alone, like some other companies experimenting with their concepts, which means that next bull run that I also don't think that will happen this year. I think it will happen in 2024, right after Bitcoin halving in May 2024, because well, crypto is always the same 4 years cycle, and this year is similar to 2019. In 2019, we also had one spike in summer, but then downtrend and then uptrend in mid 2022. So yeah, this is a bit of my predictions and my thoughts on where we all go and when next bull market could start.
同时，我也预计，其实在今年2023年会有很多这种所谓的成长型链在不断的进行实验，不断的进行推出市场。因为我们其实也是其中的一个，其他的一些链，他们可能会用不同的一些概念来做一些试点和实验。我预计可能到2024年的时候，他们整个市场会全面的开花。因为据我的观测，在整个加密市场其实是处于一个4年左右的周期。比如说在2019年的夏天的时候，我看到了一轮猛增，接下来呢又会出现市场的一些微调下降，然后到了2022年的时候呢，可能又会有一些 又出现了反复的一些下降和上涨，所以我更倾向来看2024年的市场表现。
Okay, thank you, Victor. Definitely feel like the beginning of the new cycle this year. So Philip, will this year be a bull market?
Mixed feelings about that. I'm really excited about what's going to happen. That all these super nets and subnets, so all sorts of L3s are coming up. I'm super bullish about zero knowledge technologies, so zero knowledge chains, zero knowledge bridges. These things are coming, and if you're going to see a new bull or not, hard to tell. But we're going to see more and more projects around real world assets, and that can fuel greater institutional interest. We're also going to see more and more regulations, which can go in both directions. Yeah, it's interesting, but in general, I believe it's going further up. But we also have to see if the general macro environment runs into a recession or into a greater recession than or not. Like this will also have quite an impact. Yeah, so still very open, but in general bullish on crypto, and it's probably a good time to get in.
我总体是呈一个开放态度，当然两者要选的话呢，我还是倾向会比较走向牛市的这样的可能性会高一些，因为我自己其实也非常渴望看到，比方说有一些超级这样的平台或者是一些超级网络的诞生，毕竟我们现在是在做一些超级的所谓的这样的零层的一些技术和一些铺垫，也渴望着看到它的迭代。我们自己做的呢，主要就针对一些机构的借贷者，来帮助他们进行资产的增值和资产的一些转移。因此在政府的一些规章制度方面呢，我们可以看到是两个方向都有，既有收紧的地区呢，也有放松的地区。对市场的话呢，我们基本上可能预测它是一个逐步的上升的一个过程。所以总的来说呢，我们是开放但向好。
Thank you. Last but not least, Sidney.
Yeah, I think I think economic conditions will improve in the second half of the year, probably around Q4. I'm not great at predictions, but I think certain shocks around inflation could ease, and that could help the market overall. I'm actually most excited about RWAs coming on chain, so real world assets. I think we see a lot of interest now from banks in doing transactions that would use the infrastructure provided by DeFi and by blockchain to run their lending programs. And I think when you look at the potential there, you can see huge asset classes like housing and real estate and property. And I think that's very good for the overall market size. Like I think that's going to bring a lot of value on chain and into the digital asset and crypto markets.
其实我们首先要看一下整个全球经济的一个复苏情况啊，我预计是在今年下半年，尤其是在第4季度的时候，经济应该会逐步的复苏，那就是意味着可能前3个季度已经把前期经济的一些后退，能够把这些压力已经吸收了，所以我最看好的一点就是基于真实世界的这些资产。因为我们看到这些真实世界资产主要是由银行来进行提供的，我们因为准备好了所有的这些 DeFi 的一些软硬件和相关的一些区块链的技术，就等着这些潜力被真实世界资产来利用起来。比方说最常见的像房地产市场的一些房屋，还有一些真实世界的一些财务，但凡是能够进行线上资产化的，我们都非常渴望看到他们的发展。
Is that all? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Omer, Victor, Philip, and Sidney for your impressive and great answer and sharing of the industry. I think now our audience probably has more confidence in the coming year and in the future of crypto. Nice talk. And thanks again. We are about to end this panel and hope you can share more experience in future RockTree OG Talk series. For those who are watching now, if you like to join the RockTree OG Talk series, please follow RockTree Twitter at RockTree Capital, as well as RockTree WeChat official account. 名字呢是实木资本，我们 RockTree Capital 的这个中文的WeChat 的这个账号。 那希望各位呢，感谢今天嘉宾各位的精彩分享。我们今天的活动呢，其实到这里也就差不多要结束了。希望各位呢，能在 RockTree OG Talk Series 的分享当中获得很多收获。那也可以点直播间里面的这个关注我们的这个栏目，然后在底下呢就可以找到 RockTree 的公众号以及电报订阅的这个频道。欢迎大家关注 RockTree 的 Telegram 这个电报的订阅频道，参与抽奖。个人的奖励呢也是有20U，然后包括多人呢都可以获得奖励。以后呢也可以关注到很多我们 RockTree Capital 的新的进展，然后包括我们行业的一些前沿的分享。那也非常期待OG Talk Series 的下一次活动，下一次精彩分享。再一次感谢大家今天的收看。
Thanks, Mandy. And thanks to our guests, Philipp, Sid, Viktor, and everybody for watching. Really good, very informative, and also anticipating great things for this year.
Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to join the RockTree Telegram channel.
谢谢大家.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.